Hello and welcome to Indus News, live from Islamabad. I'm Hamza Rifat, and these are the headlines. In Afghanistan, fighting between the Taliban fighters and resistance forces has intensified in Panjshir Valley. Both sides claim to have inflicted heavy losses on each other. This comes as the group is reportedly preparing to announce their new government, with Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar as its head. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan has urged the international community to take steps to stabilize security situation in Afghanistan. He was speaking to British Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab, who's on a two-day official visit to Pakistan. Raab expressed desire to continue to work together for the Afghan people, but said the world will judge the Taliban by their actions, not their words. The European Union and AstraZeneca have reached a deal to end a legal battle over the slow pace of deliveries of the company's COVID-19 vaccines. The settlement obliges the drug maker to deliver a total of 300 million doses by the end of March 2022. In Pakistan, additional curbs have been imposed in districts with high positivity rate as the country's death toll crossed 26,000. In the United States, at least 58 people have died as the remnants of Storm Ida ravaged the country's northeastern states. Ida was the fifth most powerful storm to hit the U.S., causing tens of billions of dollars in damage. The news in detail after a short break. Stay tuned to Indus News. And now for the news in detail. In Afghanistan, fighting between the Taliban fighters and resistance forces has intensified in Panjshir Valley. Both sides claim to have inflicted heavy losses on each other. Panjshir is the only province that has not fallen to the Taliban, and thousands of opposition fighters are believed to have been massed there. Meanwhile, officials from Qatar's foreign ministry have landed in Kabul in a bid to reopen the Kabul airport. This comes as the group is reportedly preparing to announce their new government, with Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar as its head. The EU and Britain have joined the US in saying they will engage with the Taliban but won't recognize their government. Now, Afghanistan's situation is considered to be extremely fluid. The Taliban have not necessarily announced the fact that, a new government would actually take place in the country. Now, to discuss this fluid situation even further, we have with us Ambassador Asif Durrani. Ambassador Asif Durrani, thank you for joining me on Indus News.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Ambassador Asif, my first question to you is that the Taliban is about to form a new government in Kabul. What do you think the orientation of this government will be?
Well, it's difficult to say. They are Taliban, so predominantly they would be following their own ideology. But they are changed if you compare it with their first government between 96 till 2001. Then they were quite harsh, but this time so far, but it's too early to say, but they are presently quite mild and they are quite media savvy. And they have been maintaining a moderated stance towards the citizens, especially the women. Mm-hmm. So this is something changed. So hopefully that their cabinet would also reflect that, and it also depends that what kind of culture policy Taliban adopt. So it has yet to unravel. Yes.
Right. Now, Ambassador Durrani, you're obviously very well versed with the unrest in Panjshir. In light of whatever the situation is actually transpiring over there, do you think that the Taliban can establish their writ completely across Afghanistan?
Well, I think it will take a while, but yes, Taliban are in a strong position because earlier the Panjshir situation was different during Ahmad Shah Massoud's time, who could hobnob with the Soviets and then he could buy time, and then he could also, manipulate. Then when Taliban came, he could hold the ground because his access to Tajikistan was uninterrupted. But now Taliban are also, they have occupied from all around this Panjshir Valley, and so it would be difficult for them, as I have my friends from the military also have corroborated this fact that people who want to resist in Panjshir would be facing a difficult task. But having said that, it is going to be a humanitarian crisis if Taliban besiege the entire Panjshir Valley, and if there is no political solution. So then there are close to 200,000 people living in Panjshir Valley. So their lives would be in danger, especially the lives of the women, elderly, and the children. So here, for the timing, the situation is precarious. Yeah.
Right. Now, let's come to the Western governments and how they've actually conditioned or actually ensured that, if we will actually recognize the Taliban government, provided that they actually protect human rights and ensure that, and human rights also constitutes women's rights as well. In light of this situation, when London, the United States, and in general, they've actually conditioned this fact, do you think that the Taliban are expected to uphold human rights?
Well, it is the Western definition of human rights. Of course, the countries, they are signatories to the human rights covenants, conventions. That is a fact. Taliban will have to actually now change their attitude, which they had displayed during their first government. And for the timing, they have there are no instances whereby one could say that they have violated human rights. But it is too early to say. Let's wait and then see how Taliban pursue their policies. Yes.
Right. Ambassador Durrani, can this Taliban government allay economic woes? You've spoken about the dire economic situation as well as the humanitarian situation, which in many ways is actually linked to the economic livelihoods of so many different Afghans. They're fleeing in throngs all across the world. Do you think that this Taliban government can allay economic woes, given that the U.S. Treasury has no plans in releasing billions of dollars in Afghan assets?
Well, that is going to be a gigantic challenge for the Taliban, because military victory had its premium. They got the government, but now the question is what next? And what next question they'll have to address, and that would be the economy of the country. And already you've seen that the Afghan currency, Afghani, is depreciated. If depreciation takes place, it would mean that cost of living would go up, and it is going to impact the general public. And which is why, if their economic conditions become worsened by the day, people are going to leave the country in search of jobs or in search of shelter, because living in the country where if the government cannot provide the jobs, so it can cause other unrest as well. And so it is going to be a big challenge for the Taliban, yes.
Right. Ambassador Durrani, final question. Should Pakistan extend recognition to the new Taliban government in Kabul?
Individually, on its own, I don't think so. But if the immediate neighbors of Afghanistan decide so I think we should join the consensus. And I think that in the coming days and weeks, the immediate neighbors of Afghanistan are likely to come up with some consensus. So, and mind you, this is just not Pakistan. Even United States and now European Union, they have also given signals that they will maintain contacts with the Taliban short of recognition. But the recognition question would be that how Taliban behave on the human rights issue. So let's hope that something good will come out. Like many other claims have been belied by the Taliban, that there's going to be civil war or unrest. That has not taken place. So let's wait for more surprises. Hopefully, those would be the pleasant surprises. Yes.
Definitely, we would definitely hope for the best. Thank you so much, Ambassador Asif Durrani, for joining me on Indus News. Now, Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan has urged the international community to take steps to stabilize the security situation in Afghanistan. He was speaking to British Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab, who's on a two-day visit to Pakistan. The Prime Minister also cautioned against the role of peace spoilers both inside and outside the country. Raab expressed desire to continue to work together for the Afghan people, but said the world will judge the Taliban by their actions, not their words. He said the United Kingdom and Pakistan have a shared interest in securing a stable and peaceful future for the country. Earlier, Raab met with his Pakistani counterpart Shah Mahmood Qureshi and the country's Army Chief General Qamar Javed Bajwa. As part of his first ever tour to Pakistan as Foreign Secretary, he visited the Torkham border to witness the situation on ground. Separately, Taliban spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid lauded Pakistan's role in peace and stability in the region. Pakistan says the international community should remain engaged with Afghanistan to ensure economic stability. Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said this in a telephonic conversation with his Slovenian counterpart Anzor Loga. The foreign minister underlined that the EU can play a pivotal role in this regard. Qureshi also highlighted the salience of an inclusive political settlement. Earlier, in a telephonic conversation with the Austrian foreign minister, Qureshi called for intensive efforts to stabilize Afghanistan's security situation and preclude any exodus of refugees. Schallenberg thanked Islamabad for its support in facilitating the transit of Austrian nationals and others from Kabul. Israeli troops have martyred another Palestinian as they opened live fire on anti-blockade protesters in Gaza Strip. Gaza's health ministry says the 26-year-old Ahmad Salah was shot in the abdomen. It said at least 15 others are wounded, including 5 children, while one of them is in critical condition. Meanwhile, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas met his Egyptian counterpart Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and Jordan's King Abdullah in Cairo. Abbas said Israel's actions have made a two-state solution impossible, but he's also ready to take confidence-building measures and restore calm. Syria says it has intercepted an Israeli aerial attack targeting multiple locations in the capital Damascus. Syrian state media said Israel launched a number of missiles from Lebanon's airspace. It said most of the missiles were downed by the army and the strikes only caused material damage. Syrian Foreign Ministry called the UN Security Council to press Israel to stop violating citizens' rights in the occupied Golan Heights. It said the international bodies must intervene immediately to enable citizens to return to their towns. The Yemeni army says it has killed at least 140 Houthi rebels in the renewed fighting in the central province of Marib. In an interview, the army's military media director said these clashes are the most aggressive since the last 5 years.
Yemen's Houthi rebels have intensified their attacks on government positions in an attempt to break through the defenses and capture the city of Marib. But Yemeni army said government forces backed by the Arab coalition had succeeded in fending off the latest assaults. The military media director said 41 sorties of coalition jets raided dozens of Houthi targets and resulted in major losses for the group. The Arab media quoted Yemeni sources as saying that a senior Houthi leader, Mohammed Hussein al-Houthi, has also been killed in an air raid. However, in a televised speech, Houthis' top leader Abdul Malik Houthi said the group will continue to fight until it seizes back all areas. He said the US and Israeli regime are the main beneficiaries of the ongoing Yemen war. Meanwhile, a government body overseeing displacement camps in Yemen said many families have been forced to flee villages in Rahaba due to the indiscriminate shelling. Earlier, the Arab coalition intercepted an explosives-laden drone launched by the Houthis toward the Saudi city of Khamis Mushayed. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken expressed a strong commitment to U.S.-Saudi strategic partnership and to helping Riyadh defend its people and territory.
NATO Secretary General has called on Russia to be transparent about its Zabad 2021 military exercises and the number of troops involved. Talking to the media, Jens Stoltenberg urged Moscow to meet its obligations under the Vienna document, which governs military exercises in Europe. NATO officials have said the Zapad drills heighten the risk of an accident or miscalculation that could touch off a crisis. Russia, which joins forces with Belarusian troops, says it is within its rights to exercise on its territory and is clear about the numbers involved. The main phase of the exercises is due to start on September the 10th. Staying with Russia, the country's president Vladimir Putin has called for launching cargo shipments via the Northern Sea route from next year. He made the remarks while addressing an event in the city of Vladivostok in Russia's Far East. He stressed to carefully and swiftly assess the prospects for such a transport corridor. Putin said the route is the future for shipping between Europe and Asia, and he also said Russia will not restrict other countries from using the route across its northern flank. Moscow is investing in infrastructure to develop the Northern Sea route. The country also aims to make it a major shipping lane as the Arctic warms at a faster rate than the rest of the world. More news on the other side. Stay tuned to Indus News. Welcome back. Now, in the United States, the death toll from flash flooding in 4 northeastern states has risen to at least 46. Remnants of Hurricane Ida unleashed torrential rains, mainly in New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. More than 170,000 homes remained without power, and an emergency has been declared across the region. Emergency workers and rafts rescued people trapped in their homes and cars. President Joe Biden has ordered federal assistance to supplement local response efforts amid the harsh weather conditions. The president also said historic investment is needed to deal with the climate crisis. Staying with America, at least 4 people have died and 2 others got injured after a small plane crashed into a building in Connecticut. Officials say the accident happened due to a mechanical failure. They said that the jet with 2 pilots and 2 passengers on board took off from Robertson Airport and was headed to North Carolina. Authorities have launched an investigation into the tragic incident. Now, a British-born Islamic State militant has pleaded guilty to 8 criminal charges in the United States. Alexander Kote is one of 2 Islamic State members who the U.S. military held in Iraq and then flew to the United States to face trial. Kote is accused of belonging to an ISIS cell dubbed the Beatles, which was involved in kidnappings in Iraq and Syria. The cell was also allegedly responsible for the beheadings of a number of Western and Japanese hostages. The terrorism charges include hostage-taking resulting in death and conspiracy to murder U.S. citizens. The charges carried potential death sentences, but American authorities have advised British officials that American prosecutors will not seek the death penalty against him. Mexico has registered nearly 1,000 daily deaths from COVID-19 and more than 18,000 new cases. Globally, the coronavirus death toll is over 4.54 million, while the caseload has exceeded 219 million. More in this report.
New COVID-19 variants, more vaccine controversies and protests against the mandatory COVID-19 vaccination rules continue to dampen the efforts to fight against the pandemic. The new Mu variant, first identified in January in Colombia, has now become the country's dominant strain, driving its deadliest outbreak. After the reports that the Latin American region is in grave need of vaccines, Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro has signed off a law allowing for vaccines and medication patents to be broken into public emergency. Meanwhile, the European Union has agreed to send millions of vaccine doses made in South Africa back to the continent. South Africa will also stop sending more doses to Europe amid reports that Africa struggles with vaccination drive, partly due to a lack of supply. In Greece, government offered unvaccinated healthcare workers a second chance to get a shot and allow those suspended to return to work. However, hundreds of workers continue to protest against mandatory jabs.
This measure is unfair. Government need to rethink it. Our unvaccinated colleagues are afraid, or they have their reasons, but all of them are not anti-vaccine. The government needs to realize that we are in the middle of the 4th wave, and they are adding 10,000 jobs that needs to be filled along with thousands of personnel needed in the sector. What are the hospitals going to do in this 4th wave? As beds are filling up?
New Zealand has reported a big drop in daily cases compared to the last few days as the country breaks the chain of transmission of the Delta variant. Australia has secured 4 million Pfizer doses in a swap deal with the UK as Prime Minister Scott Morrison urged states to stick to a national reopening plan. However, a steady rise in infections in Sydney, Melbourne from the Delta variant stoked concerns in virus-free states. Meanwhile, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un ordered a tougher epidemic prevention campaign after turning down vaccines offered via the UN-backed program.
Now, Pakistan has registered 57 deaths from coronavirus over the past 24 hours. The Health Ministry says the nationwide tally of fatalities has crossed 26,000. The ministry said the virus infected nearly 3,800 people overnight. The country's caseload has exceeded 1.17 million, while over 1,055,000 have recovered. Health officials say over 90,000 cases are active, of which more than 5,600 are critical. Pakistan has also administered over 58 million COVID-19 shots to date. Staying with Pakistan, Foreign Office has summoned the Indian Charge d'Affaires to protest the inhumane handling of the deceased Kashmiri freedom fighter Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani. It said the shameless act of snatching the body of Gilani is a clear violation of international humanitarian law. The Foreign Office said Indian occupation forces have repeatedly resorted to indiscriminate use of force against Kashmiris. It added that India falsely stages acts of malice in the occupied territory to divert world's attention and tosses the blame on Pakistan. The Foreign Office emphasized that India must immediately lift the illegal military siege in occupied Kashmir. In Pakistan, funeral prayer in absentia of Kashmiri veteran Sayyid Ali Gilani was held in Faisal Mosque in Islamabad. Pakistan's President Arif Alvi, as well as the top military and political leadership of the country, attended the prayers. A number of Kashmiri parliamentarians were also present at the funeral. Earlier, Indian authorities in the occupied Jammu and Kashmir refused to let Gilani's family have a public funeral. They buried him in the dead of the night after snatching his body from his family, as we mentioned earlier. Meanwhile, they have also extended a lockdown imposed in the valley in the aftermath of Gilani's death. Japan's Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga says he will not run for re-election as party leader this month. Suga announced his intention to resign at an emergency meeting of senior members of the ruling Liberal Democratic Party in Tokyo. In a press briefing, Suga said he wants to focus on anti-coronavirus measures. He took over last September, but his approval ratings have sunk to an all-time low over pandemic handling. Ruling party officials said Suga will finish his term as president. This means he will stay on until his successor is chosen in the party-wide election slated for September the 29th. In New Zealand, police have shot dead a man after he stabbed at least 6 shoppers at Auckland supermarket. Authorities say 3 of those wounded are in critical condition and 1 in serious condition. At a briefing, Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern described the incident as a terror attack. Ardern said the attacker was a Sri Lankan national who had been in New Zealand for 10 years. She noted the man had been a person of interest for about 5 years. The Prime Minister said the violent extremist was inspired by the Islamic State militant group. A police commissioner said there is no further risk as the attacker was acting alone. In Thailand, anti-government protesters plan more demonstrations to demand Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha's resignation. The Prime Minister is also facing grilling in Parliament in a censure debate that started earlier this week. Thousands took to the streets of the capital Bangkok and pledged to return every day until the Premier leaves office. The rally was one of the biggest of the year, despite a ban on gatherings due to coronavirus restrictions. Another smaller protest also took place near the Prime Minister's residence in another part of the city. Prayut and 5 other ministers have already been accused of corruption and mismanagement by the opposition. Now we'll move to Africa. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, 12 people died following a tailings leak from the Katoka diamond mine in Angola in July. The environmental minister said over 4,500 people also fell sick after the Shikipa River turned red. She said nearly 1 million residents of the region are directly or indirectly affected in the southern Kasai province. Authorities have banned people from drinking the river's water after tons of fish died as a result of the spill. Authorities also said they will ask for reparations for the damage caused. Waste material from Angola's biggest diamond mine leaked into a river last month, filling waterways with sediment before the breach was sealed. An 11-year-old Parisian boy has found his own way of helping to protect the environment by fishing metal objects from the Seine River. More in this report.
Everything started when Rafael first saw YouTube videos of people fishing objects out of rivers with magnets in 2019. Soon after, he got his first magnet for Christmas and saw it as a way to do something for the planet.
J'ai l'impression d'agir pour la planète.
I feel like I'm doing something for the planet, even if it is not much on my own small level, but at least I'm doing something. Some who are 10 or 11 years old stay at home and play soccer. Well, at 11 years old, I know I'm cleaning up. Not the entire planet, but I'm still cleaning up.
In a year and a half, Rafael has finished about 300 bikes, 200 scooters and 100 shipping trolleys out of the Seine and Paris canals. He has also fished several odd items, including handguns, a German rifle, an artillery shell and a jewel adorned with a precious stone. Rafael wants to raise awareness about the climate change and hopes it encourages others to also step up their efforts to save the planet.
Le but, c'est de sensibiliser.
My goal is to raise awareness so that a maximum of people do something. They don't have to do what I do, but at least do something. Even if it's not necessarily cleaning up canals, it could just be picking up a cigarette butt.
In October 2020, he was awarded the Medal of Paris, a distinction for people who accomplished a remarkable deed concerning the city. An exhibition with some of Rafael's treasures and items most commonly found in the Seine will open later this month in Paris.
We'll be right back after a short break. Stay tuned to Indus News. Welcome back. Now, time for some commercial updates. The Wall Street stocks have dropped after a slowdown in the August jobs report showing the impact of the Delta-fueled COVID-19 resurgence. The Labor Department said that the non-farm payrolls have increased by over 200,000 in August. The indices of S&P 500 and Dow Jones Industrial Index traded marginally lower, but Nasdaq Composite traded up by a fraction. Meanwhile, the oil prices surged over a likely rebound in global demand. Time now for the weather report with Munib Hamid.
Welcome to the weather forecast. Now we're going to start with Abu Dhabi, where the weather is expected to be extremely hot, with temperatures rising to 41 degrees Celsius, while in Amsterdam, cloudy weather is expected, while temperatures steady at 21. Now if we head to Ankara, there is partly sunny weather with temperatures at 24. Moving down under to Auckland, the temperature is chilly at 17, with also partly sunny sky. Now if you are traveling to Bangkok, there will be a thunderstorm with temperatures around 30. In Beijing, temperatures are at 30 degrees Celsius, accompanied with partial sunny sky, while Beirut will also experience partly sunny weather with temperatures at 30. Meanwhile, Berliners will experience temperatures at 22 degrees Celsius, accompanied with sunny sky. Now heading to Cairo, the sun will be out with temperatures at 36 with clear sunny sky in the forecast, and down under into Canberra, the temperatures are at 20 with the thin layer of clouds in the sky today. In Islamabad, temperatures are at 35 degrees Celsius with a clear sun in the sky, while in Jakarta, the temperatures are steady at 32 with some clouds floating in the sky. And that's all for now. Back to you.
And with a weather update, we come to the end of this bulletin. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.